I stepped into the elevator just as the doors began to close. My hand shot out by instinct, and they slid open again with a reluctant sigh. I was too tired to care much. The building had emptied hours ago, and the fluorescent hallway behind me hummed with that eerie after-hours silence. I just wanted to get home, maybe heat up leftovers and collapse on my couch. Then I noticed her, Alina Hartley. She was standing at the far end of the elevator, spine straight, arms folded loosely. Her coat draped over one arm like she'd been waiting to leave for a while but hadn't found a reason to go. She looked up from her phone when I entered, not surprised, just aware. Her expression didn't change, not a smile, not a frown. Just that unreadable stillness she wore like armor. Late night, as if the awkwardness needed a name. She didn't answer at first, just pressed the lobby button, then leaned back against the mirror-paneled wall, eyes lowering. Again to her screen. "Long presentation," she said finally. "You handled it well." That startled me more than the silence had. Compliments from her were rare. Not cruelly withheld, just precise, surgical, only given when earned. "Thank you," I said a little too quickly. The elevator began its descent. I kept to my side, hands in pockets, pretending not to study her through the reflection. Hair was swept back today, not in the usual bun, but loose, framing her cheekbones. She looked tired too, not in the way I did, with rumpled sleeves and scuffed shoes, but in some deeper, more composed way, like someone used to holding things. Together, I was about to ask her something. Anything to fill the quiet, when the elevator groaned. A jolt ran through the floor. The lights blinked once, then died. We stopped. Everything went black for a second, and the emergency backup light kicked in, a soft amber glow from the panel above us. It was dim, but steady, casting elongated shadows on the walls. Alina didn't move right away. "Neither did I, did we?" I began. "Get stuck." Yes, her voice was level, maybe a little resigned. She tapped the emergency button. Nothing happened. Tried her phone. No service. Mine showed one flickering bar. No internet? No signal strong enough to call out? I looked at her. "So, plan B?" She exhaled softly and sat down in the corner, smoothing her skirt as she leaned against the wall. We wait. The stillness settled between us like a third presence. No distant voices, no footsteps, just the faint humming of emergency systems and the distant city beyond the walls. I stayed standing, arms crossed, now trying not to fidget. The silence pressed in. I tried not to look at her. I failed. She looked calm, almost too calm. Her head tilted back slightly, eyes half closed, like she wasn't in an elevator, but some dimly lit meditation room. She always looked that way in. Meetings too, unreadable, deliberate, impossible to pin down. "Have you ever been stuck like this before?" I asked. She opened her eyes slowly and looked at me. "Once, years ago, in Paris. It was a much older elevator, and the man I was. Wouldn't stop quoting poetry. I nearly clawed the doors open just to make him stop. I laughed, too loud in the small space. No poetry here, I promise." Her mouth curved slightly, not quite a smile, but enough. Minutes passed. Maybe longer. The emergency light cast. Faint halo around her, catching the shine on her watch, the edge of her cheekbone, the way her hand rested, relaxed now on her lap. I sat down too. Not close, just enough to stretch my legs. The floor was cold. It felt strange being alone with her like this. No desks, no performance, no roles to play. Just two people in a box, suspended above the city. She looked at me again, slower this. "Time, you always stay late." I shrugged, trying to prove myself, I guess. She studied me for a long moment. "You already have." My throat went dry. I wanted to ask what she meant, but I didn't. Maybe I was afraid the answer would matter more than I wanted it to. Instead, I nodded, and we sat there in the soft silence, waiting for something to shift. Time stretched like warm wax. At some point, It stopped feeling like an inconvenience and started feeling like something else, something suspended. Out of time, unreal. Alina shifted beside me, brushing the hem of her blazer back from her lap. Then, without a word, she slipped it off entirely, folded it in half, and set it beside her. She wore a cream blouse beneath it, crisp, simple, elegant. The fabric clung slightly at the shoulders and loosened toward her wrists, where she began unbuttoning the cuffs slowly, one then the other, before rolling her sleeves just once, neatly. It wasn't seductive. It was methodical, fluid. I looked away before she could catch me watching. But I'd already seen her fingers deliberate, steady. I'd seen how she curled them slightly when they rested on her knee. I knew I'd never unsee them. She shifted again, slipped off her heels with a muted sigh. The sound was almost lost beneath the hum of the elevator walls. She stretched her toes slightly, letting them touch the cool metal floor, then sat back. When she caught me glancing at her feet, she arched an eyebrow, amused but not mocking. "You don't have to look so uncomfortable," she said quietly. "I'm not," I lied, "just not used to this kind of silence." She nodded slowly. "It can be loud, can't it?" It's silence. I met her eyes, and for the first time, I saw the tiredness wasn't just physical. There was something older in it, something familiar. "Where were you before all this?" I asked. She hesitated. "Then D.C., before that Boston, married once." Briefly, she gave a small shrug. "My sister still lives back east, keeps telling me I need to buy a dog." "You don't strike me as a dog person," I said. "I'm not," she replied, smiling faintly. But I let her believe I might be. It gives her something to hope for. There was something weightless in the way she said it, but not dismissive, just practiced. Like she'd said it 100 different ways in her head already. I found myself wanting to keep her talking, anything to stop feeling like my pulse was suddenly too loud. "I used to think people like you had everything figured out," I said. "Careers, confidence, polished shoes." She gave a dry laugh. "Confidence is a trick. Shoes are the easy part." I nodded, a smile tugging at my mouth. "That's disappointing to hear, honestly. I thought I was some mysterious executive with a hidden past. I mean, kind of. That or a spy." She gave a low, amused sound in her throat, and her head tilted slightly toward me. "And you?" she asked. "Hey, what were you before the long nights and spreadsheets, barista? Before college?" "I got good at making hearts in cappuccino foam. I'd believe that." "What? That I make coffee? That you make hearts?" Her words were quiet. Too quiet. I didn't know how to respond. My mouth opened slightly, then closed again. The air shifted. Something in the space between us grew heavier. She leaned her head back against the wall and pressed both hands flat against the cool metal behind her, fingers spread, palms open. I couldn't help it. I looked, and kept looking. She didn't move. "I see you watching my hands," she said. I froze. My cheeks flushed. "I wasn't," I began. "You were," she said simply. "It's all right." She looked over at me. Her gaze was calm, measured. "I watch people too," she said after a moment. "You tap your thumb against your thigh. When you're thinking, you smile when you disagree with someone instead of interrupting them. And you always stand when someone older walks into a room, even if they're not your boss." I didn't know what to do with that. I didn't know she'd noticed me at all, let alone memorized me like that. The elevator felt warmer suddenly. Maybe it was just my skin. I tried to laugh it off. I didn't realize I had tells. "We all do," she murmured. Then silence. Again, not cold, not tense, just full. As if we'd spoken enough for now, I leaned my head back too. Our shoulders weren't touching, but they were closer than before, somewhere far below. I imagined the world still moved cars on wet streets, someone fumbling for keys, the smell of bakeries warming up for morning. But up here, it was just us, the soft hum of the elevator's frozen gears, and her hands, still resting quietly against the wall. The temperature had dropped without us noticing. Maybe it was the stillness, or the way time moved differently in a space with no sky. The elevator was silent now, humming only in faint pulses, like a machine dreaming. I rubbed my hands together, then glanced at her. She had her arms folded loosely over her knees, chin tucked down, eyes half closed. She wasn't sleeping, just conserving something. Her blouse, delicate as it looked earlier, did nothing to hide the way her shoulders had tightened, how her breath came slightly shallower than before. I didn't think. I just moved. Without saying anything, I pulled off my jacket, leaned slightly, and offered it to her. Her eyes opened slowly. She looked at the jacket, then up at me. "You'll get cold," she said softly. I shrugged. "I run warm." She hesitated. Not because of pride, I don't think, but because of something else. Something she wasn't used to accepting easily. But then, the sigh so small it could have been breath alone, she reached out and took it. Our fingers brushed bare skin for half a second. Hers were cool, elegant. Mine felt clumsy by comparison. But she didn't pull away too fast. She slipped the jacket on like she'd done it before, folding into the warmth, her body disappearing. Slightly into its bulk, she hugged it around herself, then looked at me. She didn't say thank you. She didn't have to. The look she gave me, quiet, steady, landed harder than any words could. It said something like, "I see you. I won't forget this." Maybe more. I sat back, unsure of what to do with myself now. The air between us had changed again, thicker, but not suffocating. Like we were breathing in something unspoken. Eventually, she leaned her head against the elevator wall and let out a slow breath. Her legs were stretched out now, heels gone, toes pointed slightly inward. She looked younger in that moment. Not soft exactly, but not carrying so much. "You surprised me," she said. I blinked. "How?" "You don't panic easily. Most people would have pressed every button by now, or tried to take the door apart with their shoe." I laughed under my breath. I thought about it. "I just didn't want to look ridiculous in front of you." She turned her head to face me fully. Her hair had fallen slightly over one eye, and she didn't push it away. "Why do you care what I think?" she asked. I opened my mouth, closed it again. "I don't know," I said honestly. "Maybe because you see everything. You walk into a room and people rearrange themselves. That kind of presence, it's hard not to care what it sees." Long silence. Then she spoke again, quieter this time. "You're not invisible, you know. You never were." Something moved through me when she said it. A kind of ache, soft but total. I looked at her. "Sometimes I feel like I am, just another suit in the room." "You're not," she said. "You listen more than you talk. You finish things without needing credit. That's rare." My throat tightened. I wasn't used to being seen like that accurately. It made something inside me feel fragile. She closed her eyes again. The jacket wrapped around her like it belonged there. Our breath clouded faintly in the cold, mingling in the dim light. Hers slowed. Mine tried to match. It didn't feel like waiting anymore. It felt like we were exactly where we were supposed to be. The quiet had deepened into something intimate. Not just silence, but shared stillness. The kind that doesn't ask for anything. It must have been hours by then. The kind of hours that blurred the edges of thought, made time feel like warm water, holding us both in place. Neither of us had spoken in a while. She'd dozed briefly, or maybe just closed her eyes to escape the moment without leaving it. My jacket was still wrapped around her. Her legs were curled slightly to one side, arms folded across her chest. Every now and then I'd glance at her and feel something I couldn't name, not quite longing, not quite awe, kind of ache maybe. Then the light overhead flickered once, then again a faint electric whine built from somewhere above. We both opened our eyes. The elevator jolted sharply, mechanical life stirring back into it. The light overhead brightened from that amber emergency hue into the cool, sterile white we were used to. The hum of the building returned, a soft, distant echo of systems waking up. Gears shifting into place, but neither of us moved. She looked at the doors, then down at her hands, now resting in her lap in the dark. She said quietly, "I could finally hear myself think." I nodded, but my voice didn't come. Something had shifted the second the lights returned. It was like we'd slipped back into roles we didn't want to wear, and the elevator knew it too. Still, we stayed seated. Another minute, maybe two.
Oh.
The moment stretched, hesitant to break. When she did rise, it was slow, deliberate. She handed my jacket back without a word. I took it. Her warmth still lingered in the sleeves. We stepped out together. The hallway was empty. Of course it was. The building wasn't awake yet, not really. But the overhead lights buzzed faintly, casting long shadows across the sterile floor tiles. It looked familiar again, normal, but not to me. We walked side by side down the corridor. Neither of us said anything, our footsteps soft against the carpet. The air smelled like it always did at this hour, clean, recycled, a little too cold. But something about the way we walked made the place feel different. Like we'd left a version of ourselves behind in that elevator, and the ones walking now weren't quite the same. At the stairwell, she paused, one hand on the railing, the other brushing her hair back behind her ear. She turned to me, her eyes steady, breath. Then, "You're going to leave this job one day." I blinked. "What?" "You are," she said. "You're too talented not to." I tried to smile, but the weight of her words anchored it before it could rise. "Is that your way of firing me gently?" She almost smiled. "Almost no," she said. "It's my way of telling you I've seen you. I've counted on you. More than you probably know." Her voice wavered, just enough for me to notice. Then she added, softer now, "But how could I possibly let you go?" It hung there, suspended like the hours had been this strange, impossible sentence. Professional, not rehearsed, just real. I stared at her, unable to speak for a moment. The fluorescent lights buzzed above us. Far off, a cleaning cart squeaked somewhere on another floor. "You'll forget this," she said, glancing away. "I won't. You will. It's what young people do. You'll move on, and this will feel like a scene in a movie you think you saw once but can't quite place." "I won't," I repeated, this time with more weight. Her eyes found mine again. This time neither of us looked away. We didn't hug. We didn't touch. But the space between us pulsed like a heartbeat. Then she turned and walked down the stairs. Her shadow stretched long across the hallway floor, drawn out by the overhead lights. I watched it move, trailing behind her like something reluctant. To let go? When I finally exhaled, it felt like I'd been holding my breath for days. Days passed, meetings resumed. Deadlines reappeared like weeds through pavement. And just like that, everything was back to normal. Or it tried to be. She didn't mention the elevator. Neither did I. We sat across from each other in the usual conference room, surrounded by graphs, spreadsheets, and voices too eager to fill the space. She didn't look at me any differently, but I could feel the difference in everything. She laughed once, briefly at something someone said. And for a second, her eyes flicked toward mine, just enough to catch, just enough to say, "Yes, I remember." 2. On Friday afternoon, as people packed up for the weekend, I got a message on my screen. "Stay after the meeting. E.H. No subject. No explanation." Just that I waited until the room cleared. She didn't look up until it was only us, and then without a word, she opened a small bag beside her, pulled out a paper cup, and placed it in front of me. Coffee. Still hot, I took it, unsure of what to say. She sat down slowly, smoothing her skirt beneath her. The city behind her painted in orange and blue through the floor-to-ceiling windows. "I never thanked you," she said finally. "You didn't need to." "Maybe not, but I wanted to." I nodded, wrapping my hands around the cup. It was warm, familiar. So much of this felt familiar now in ways I couldn't explain. "I'm not going anywhere," I said. She looked at me, quiet for a long beat. "I didn't ask you to stay." No, her lips parted slightly like she might say something else, but she didn't. Instead, she leaned back, crossed one leg over the other, and then almost deliberately removed one heel. Then the other. This time she didn't do it absent-mindedly. She faced me. Her feet, bare against the carpet, flexed slightly as if waking up. She set the shoes neatly beside her chair and exhaled slowly. I don't know what moved through me in that moment. It wasn't desire exactly. It wasn't awe. It was something quieter. A sense that I was being invited into something wordless, something she wasn't used to sharing. We sat like that for a while. The city pulsed gently behind her, headlights moving like stars in orbit, a plane blinking its way through the dusk. She rested her hands on her knees. No jewelry. It's just skin and breath, and the faint sound of the heating system humming overhead. I didn't try to fill the silence. I knew somehow that this was the closest she got to being vulnerable in that naming. It might make it disappear. Minutes passed, maybe more. Neither of us stood. Eventually I looked down at my cup, then back at her. I lied, said quietly. She raised an eyebrow, curious. In the elevator, when I said I wasn't uncomfortable, she smiled. Just slightly, I know. Was it? That was all we needed. No grand confessions, no sweeping declarations. Just the quiet knowing that something had been exchanged in the dark. Something neither of us wanted to break. Later, I walked past her office on my way out. Her desk lamp was still on. She was alone. She didn't see me. Or maybe she did, and just didn't look up. But she was holding something in her hand. My travel mug, the one I must have left in the elevator without realizing. She lifted it to her lips and took a slow sip, then stared out the window as if listening for something far away. And I thought maybe the elevator didn't change her. Maybe it just reminded her. I was already there.